Okay, so floppy drive is sort of working, but not. Can't boot off it. Haven't got a hard drive, so bit of a disaster at this point. It's working. So I do have another drive, and coincidentally, it's exactly the same model. As you can see, it's a little bit more worse for wear. At least the case is. As far as I remember, it is a fully functioning drive though, so we'll try using that instead. In terms of compact flash storage, I've got, or what I did have actually was this, which is a IDE to disk on module adapter, and I have a disk on module 1 GB card. Unfortunately, because of the way this is created, the module goes on the wrong way, so it covers up the IDE cable, so that combo isn't going to work. I do have some of these though, so let's get this open. Now this isn't the ideal solution for this particular machine, but what we've got here is a IDE to compact flash on a ISA bracket. So basically we could have that in the back of the case with an externally accessible compact flash card, and we just put the IDE cable through. It's not the best solution for this. It's a long way from the IDE cable. We've got this support in the way, so we'd have to run the cable underneath over the RAM, over the processor. Might make it get a little bit hot, but what we can do is use this for testing. So let's try that. So here's the IDE cable. Here's the adapter. The adapter has got a key in it. The cable hasn't. I can't remember which way around they go, but there is a pin missing, so that tells me straight away. So the cable goes this way around. Right, I've got two 128 megabyte cards, so these are very, very contemporary in terms of capacity. I don't know if either of these are going to work. They're both crucial. People have mixed success with compact flash cards. I've got a feeling this should work. I'm not going to say definitely will work. If not, we can find some compact flash cards that will be recognised by as fixed discs. We supply some power, so I've got a Molex to floppy power adapter. Plenty of free Molexes on here. So let's put that over here. Let's put that into there. This can power this for now. As I said, it's not a long-term solution because we need to find something that fits more locally on this side of the drive. I can't see from this angle if I'm putting it in right around. I am, so that's fine. So there's the compact flash hard disk temporarily sorted. Here's my floppy cable. Here's my floppy drive. So let's put those in. Power that as well. Right, so floppy should work. We should be able to boot off it. We'll see if the BIOS can detect this as a permanent hard disk. If not, we'll try the other card. If not, some others we can try as well, but they're all much bigger capacity. So, power. We need some power. Power supply's come on, monitor's kicked in, so we're about to receive a signal. There we go. Keyboard failure, no keyboard, so we probably should sort out that first, shouldn't we? Now that the PS2 port on the back is working, it's maybe worth giving this lovely mechanical keyboard a try that came with it. Be nice if this worked. that's in. Power on. So I haven't put the CMOS battery back in, so it's never going to remember settings between boots, but that's okay. So we're going to run the setup when we get the F2 prompt. There we go. So F2 keyboard works, lovely. Let's just put in some something just to keep it happy. Wouldn't let me type in a date. Okay, there we go. So floppy is 3.5. Let's go for auto on the hard drive. Save that. See what happens. No boot device. Okay, so there's no floppy in the floppy drive, so that would make sense. Let's put one in, see what we get. So this, I think, is a working DOS 622 install disk. Clean media, I should say. So the floppy is spinning up. Hang on a minute. I've got a feeling. Let me just turn this off. Reject that. I'm just gonna check one thing. When I tried to install this cable in the original floppy drive, I was putting it in the wrong way around. I was putting it in that way and it wouldn't let me because it was keyed. This one's let me put it in unintentionally the wrong way. So not surprising that it couldn't find a boot device. Okay, let's try again now. So we're going to have to re-enter the disk geometries into the BIOS when we get the chance. Okay, drive's making a proper seek noise now. Okay. So it hasn't gone into the BIOS for some reason. Let's just flop that floppy in. Non-system disk, so was I mistaken? Is it one of these? Ooh, okay, a couple of things are interesting. One is it's remembered the BIOS settings despite the CMOS battery not being in there, despite being turned off with the actual power switch. It's remembered the floppy disk settings, but it's also detected the hard drive. So we might be in luck, because this was on auto before, if you remember. Right, so what we need to do is get it booting. Okay, so it's definitely not going to boot off this disk. Let's try this one. The reason I'm trying these rather than my known good DOS installation disk is that whenever I'm trying unknown floppy disks, I really like to put an old disk in rather than something that I need in case the drive is completely faulty and the heads are broken and it scratches the disk surface. I'm confident one of these is a DOS boot disk. This is version A07 of the BIOS. I did notice on the Dell website that there's an A12, and I think that may have had something to do with year 2000 upgrade and CPU type upgrade. If we get it working, we might consider trying flashing a new BIOS as well. Might give us some extra hard disk capacity. The Dell logo on the monitor is slightly different from the Dell logo on the case and on the keyboard. This might be a slightly newer monitor. Let's just give it a date that's less than 2000, just in case that's causing some problems. This is correct. This is potentially correct. I haven't done the calculation yet. Everything looks right in the BIOS. I'll try and boot in one of those drives, floppy disks again. It's definitely not happy about any of those floppy disks, and I'm sure one of them is a working floppy, so there's still something wrong with the floppy drive. Switching in this alternate one didn't help. Okay, so third drive not recognizing that floppy that I thought was a good working floppy, so let's consider the possibility that I'm wrong and that all of these floppy disks are in fact useless. So do I risk putting in my very usable DOS boot disk? I think we're going to have to. So it may have been on a bit of a wild goose chase. Okay, so it said it's starting MS-DOS, so it's able to read the drive initially. It is, however, now stopped accessing the floppy, hasn't progressed past this, so I think there's something else wrong at the moment with this computer. Most likely is one of those RAM sticks is not working correctly. Oh, hang on. It's now having another go at reading the disk. So in fact, was it just timing out the hard drive, the compact flash card? It shouldn't have been. The disk access sounds slow, sounds like about half the speed normal. It's not a very energetic drive. Maybe just this particular model. So we are getting somewhere. There's a scratch in the screen there. So we're getting somewhere in that the floppy disk is working. It's possible the original floppy disk was also working, and that we've just spent half an hour trying 2 extra drives we didn't need. But it still doesn't seem quite right because it seems a bit slower than it should be. So an error is detected trying to read or write to your hard disk. So it's detected the hard drive, but it's refusing to write to it. I suspect that's because it's detected it's a removable drive. But let's just have a little look at what fdisk says. because FDisk wouldn't show it if it was removable. Error reading fixed disk. So for whatever reason it's not happy with that compact flash card or this compact flash adapter. Let's try a different card. In a minute we'll go back to using the original floppy drive as well, because it does appear as if that was actually working, potentially. So interestingly, this time, immediately after starting MS-DOS prompt came up, it carried on accessing the disk, whereas the first time it didn't. There was a significant lag before it started loading. Not sure why that would be. So we've definitely got some progress. Ooh, okay, so it's recognised the compact flash as a drive. So let's go back into FDisk and have a look. Ooh. So I shouldn't really be exciting, but this is quite exciting. So obviously had this on a camera, digital camera. It's formatted as a FAT16, so DOS622 should be okay with it. 120 megabytes, so very, very similar capacity to the original that came out of there, the mechanical Seagate one. What do we do? Do we carry on? Do we... No, we need to see if that original floppy drive is working, so let's turn that off. Eject that disk that we know is good. Hide those other disks that I thought were good, but obviously are not. We'll get rid of that drive. We'll get rid of this cable, which isn't the original. We'll put in the original cable and the original drive. Get them on. There we go. All right, so original drive, compact flash hard disk, known good bootable floppy. What could possibly go wrong? So it hasn't attempted to access the floppy drive. Now it has. So that's frustrating, isn't it? We've serviced this drive, cleaned the heads, we've greased the rail, so it should be working, but it isn't. That's a shame. Okay, so let's go back to the middle ground. We have exactly the same drive here. Drive hasn't made its seeking noise that I would expect it to from a cold boot. There you go, just has now. The drive that came in the system originally didn't do that, so that's reassuring. Starting MS-DOS. This drive sounds faster than the Panasonic we just took out. Sounds like the heads are moving around much quicker. Okay, so we've got a potential working floppy. We need to flop it out. We need to swap it out and flop it out into that hideous plastic carrier. I'm not looking forward to that. Then we need to decide how we're going to mount that compact flash in the system, whether we're going to use the rear bracket adapter, whether we're going to use something that we can just tuck inside. We've only got 3 ISA slots on here, so I'm tempted not to use the back because we may want to use it for something else like a SCSI port or something like that. It would have the massive advantage of being able to access the hard disk from outside for adding software, particularly as there's no CD-ROM. It's going to be laborious adding software to this via the floppy drive. If we wanted to put that back panel compact flash adapter on it, we would have to have a long IDE cable and a long power cable. The one I've got on there at the moment isn't very long at all, it's only about 2 inches longer. So let me have a think about that. In the meantime, I'll swap these drives over and we will think about how to deal with the hard disk. But we are getting somewhere, we're making progress. This is turning out to be a very long video. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I've changed my mind a little bit overnight. We are going to install to this SD card in the back bracket, SD card holder, compact flash holder. We are going to use the non-original floppy drive to install operating system to that. And then we're going to leave the old drive in just because it was so difficult to kind of get it out of the caddy. So we're going to do that, just see if that works, and see if we can get this machine kind of up and running a little bit. Now, I don't have DOS 5, but I do have a Dell branded DOS 6, so I think that would have been a reasonable upgrade at the time, so I'm going to put that in. And I do have Windows 3.1 Dell OEM version on 8 floppy drives. So we'll have a go, see if we can install an operating system onto this compact flash card. So let's start by turning it on. Put this one in. There we go. Alright, so it has forgotten all this information overnight, so let's give it some values which are realistic. Can I install MS-DOS 6 on your computer because it doesn't have a hard drive? Okay, so yesterday it was recognising this compact flash as a hard drive, so today it's not, so that's weird. Let's exit. Let's see if F-disk can see the hard drive. Nope. Okay, so let's just power cycle it. See if it's because of the BIOS configuration. So yesterday auto detected that card correctly. Making all the right noises, but it did last time. Okay, so now it can see the card. So I think there was a little bit of a BIOS issue there, but let's continue. So is that correct? Sort of. So I lucked out with this keyboard, by the way. So this is the Dell Bigfoot with the Alps salmon pink keys. So very nice keyboard. So although it's recognising the drive, it's not letting me write to it. That's a shame. Okay, let's just go back, maybe because it was already formatted. So let's go to F-disk, wipe the drive. Oh. Fail. Right. So yeah, so this was formatted in a camera. So let's delete that partition, create a new partition, and see if we can get DOS to install to that. So we're going to delete the primary partition, move 1 into the volume label, and then DC. Am I sure? Yes, please. Okay. So we're going to create a primary partition. Do we want to use all the space? Yes. So now we're going to reboot. When the setup install routine starts, I am going to exit it and go back to F-disk just to make sure that the partition has been created and that it's been marked as active. If not, we can do that from within F-disk. Display, no partitions defined. Okay, so maybe it couldn't write to the disk. So maybe this isn't going to work anyway. Maybe we are going to have to put a physical hard drive in here, or find another compact flash card that is more compatible. Judging by the age of this machine, I'm guessing the largest hard drive is going to be about 500 megs. So that is going to be a problem, potentially. I'm not going to have a physical drive that small at the moment. So yeah, so it can't write to the drive, it can't create the partition. So we're going to have to start with a different strategy. That's a shame. Okay. Okay, so I have found some relatively contemporary drives. There's an 8 gig Seagate here, but it is 98, so that's 6 years later. That'd be a justifiable upgrade, I suppose, at some point. There's another 8 gig drive here. 2003, and that's a whole decade later, so we probably shouldn't be using that. But what I have found is a 2 gig SanDisk compact flash card, and I think this is going to work, which is interesting because I've had the most success over the years with SanDisk drives. Their compact flashes seem to be much better for use in compact flash adapters, so that's interesting, isn't it? Okay, so let's try again. Disk drive is in the floppy disk drive. Successfully booting. Let's put it back to United Kingdom. Seems sensible as that's where I live. And it now seems to be working, so that's great. So it's recognised it as a legitimate fixed hard disk. I had a quick look in FDisk before I restarted filming, and it recognised the full 2 gigs, so it looks like this BIOS is probably okay up to 8 gigs. So we've looked out there a little bit. So I'll speed this a little bit up, and then we'll move on to installing Windows. Double space is one of the reasons why we have 6.1 and 6.2 come out very quickly. That's another video though. Oh no! Okay, what just happened? I ejected the disk and the machine turned off. Oh no, I think the power supply just failed. What a disaster. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to do nothing because I have not got a replacement power supply here. Not an AT one anyway. Okay, that's a big bummer. Let me just quickly do some troubleshooting on the power supply, just make sure it is that. First one is, if I turn this on, the monitor comes on, so the pass-through is working, but we're getting no power to the motherboard. So it looks like either the motherboard has died or the power supply has died. Most likely the power supply, I think. There was no pops or bangs, there's no smoke. Could be a fuse. There's not a fuse in the plug, otherwise the pass-through wouldn't work. Could be a fuse in the power supply. I don't think there's any fuses on this motherboard. I didn't notice any when I was looking at it earlier. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Okay, that's a massive shame, isn't it? I've got another 486 that should have an AT motherboard in it, an AT power supply in it. Could potentially use that. Okay. This is not turning out to be very straightforward, is it? Okay, things aren't as bad as we thought. So there is a problem, and it's an obvious problem when you think about it. If you look closely at what I've done, I've rested this bracket directly on top of the motherboard case, and it's shorted out somewhere on the bottom. So let's isolate that, and we should be working again. And here's the bag it came in. Let's try that, see if that works. Okay, I can hear the power supply fan spinning up, so phew, it looks like major disaster averted, but minor disaster caused by stupidity. So this power supply obviously got a really good protection circuit on it. Didn't blow a fuse. Let's come straight back up. So let's start again. Let's start with disc 1. Okay, let's see how far we get this time without blowing things up. It was coincidental that when I took out the second floppy drive, that's when it cut out. But the reason for that was because I'd obviously just nudged it a little bit and it had shorted on the power supply. Nothing to do with the drive itself. Just coincidence, the physical movement. Okay, so this is the point where it failed before. So it looks like this disc, unfortunately, is damaged. Okay, for the sake of expediency, I'm going to use DOS 622. I can't get my bridge machine to write the middle floppy disk of the Dell version 6, so we're just going to go with something that does work, because this video is long enough already. So for some reason now, it's not detecting the combat flash card, even though it could before. The disk access light is staying on. So why can't we now access the hard drive? That doesn't make sense. Okay, so I've swapped it out for a 512 megabyte SanDisk as a combat flash card. It seems to detect that okay. It doesn't bode well for when we get the machine back together, whether it's actually going to continue detecting the card, but we're going to give it a go. So let's try installing DOS 622 on this 512 megabyte compact flash card. This disk drive sounds really healthy. So I might install that after all when I reassemble. Let's just see if we can get past this hurdle first. So if we do manage to successfully install DOS 622, I'm going to put the compact flash bracket in the back. I'm going to use a longer IDE lead so that we can stretch across the motherboard underneath that bracket. I'm going to have to do the same with the power somehow, but I'm sure we can get this this working. Okay, look, progress. There's 4 discs and a full set of 622, but I think they only use the first 3. Disk 4's got some legacy commands in it and a few extra bits and pieces. Getting close. So we've got some geometry controls on this monitor. Let's just make that image as best as it can be. That's pretty good. It's got a bit of pincushion. See if we can play with that later. So, unbelievable. So on 99%, it's decided it can't write to the hard drive. Let's just try that again. It's not happening. The disk access light is staying on, not flickering. So, what of crumbs? Okay, so we've had various problems with compact flash cards. We've had 3 different issues. We've had some that just aren't recognised by the BIOS, some that are recognised by the BIOS but then later fail. And this one is a slightly different failure mode, so before it couldn't detect any partitions or detect the hard drive at all. This detected the hard drive all the way through to the end, but now it's failing to write to it. So let's just do one more. The little status down here is it's trying to copy over command.com, which is a slightly important file. So I've got an idea. Okay, we're going to fail the operation. It is command.com. Okay. But that doesn't matter. Okay, because what we're going to do, rather than... Oh, that's going to try and reboot, isn't it? Can we get... We can use F3. It didn't say so. Ah. Okay, so can we oops. Can we do the C drive? We can. Can we scan diskette? No. So it's got a constant disk access light, it's not flickering, and it's crashed essentially. Trying to read the allocation tables. So although it looked like this compact flash was promising at the beginning, it obviously isn't. It's not going to work in this system. Wow, this is going to be a really long video. Might have to be a multi-part video, but let's keep going. So, compact flash, goodbye. Let's put a physical hard drive in. So goodbye to the compact flash adapter. Goodbye to the power adapter. Hello to the 8 gig physical hard drive. Now we do know that this has got 16,000 cylinders, 16 heads and 63 sectors. Now the BIOS isn't going to support that, but if we get the right number of heads and sectors, then we should be able to use some of the capacity of this drive. Just not all of it. And I'm guessing it's going to be about half a gig. So that's boot up. HPFS, oh interesting. So I suspect that's incorrect, but it is being recognised as 8 gigs by Fdisk. So that's interesting. So let's delete that partition. Sorry, delete non-DOS partition is 4. Yes, I do want to delete that. Cool. So can I create a DOS partition? Yes. Let's see if Fdisk and the setup will recognise it correctly again. Okay, it's formatting to 8 gigs really quickly. So I'm wondering if it hasn't created an 8 gig partition, whether it's created something smaller as a boot drive, maybe 2 gigs or less. I'm a bit concerned that the floppy disk is resting on the hard disk. I'm just going to induce some vibration, particularly when we change disks, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable, but the position for the hard disk is underneath that caddy. We'd have to disassemble that part of the computer again. Let's just see if we actually get the drive recognised and whether we can see if it's bootable. If it is, we'll install Windows 3.1.1, we'll reassemble with the physical hard drive in place. So we're getting close now, 85%, most of the way there. Just copying over the Microsoft Windows utilities that came bundled with the late versions of DOS. The last one was command.com. Now, really interestingly, the physical hard drive light stayed on for ages then. A bit like the compact flash, but it did eventually go out, unlike the compact flash. Okay, let's boot this system. Let's see if we've actually got a functioning machine. If we have, brilliant. So there's a couple things we can do to test whether it's fully functioning. First one is see if it actually boots. Okay, that's promising. Disk access light has come on and gone back off. And come back on. Okay, so it looks like we are getting some progress. DOS is at least booting off the hard disk. Now we don't know what the install program has done in terms of partitioning. Has it created one large 8 gig partition? Has it created some smaller ones? The hard disk access speed seems very slow. Even for a good old 8 gig drive from the 90s. So it may be that there's something not quite right still on the IDE channel. Normally once you see this MS-DOS sentence here, it's normally booted within 1 to 2 seconds. We can read the hard drive. It's going to tell us how much free space there is in a second. It's just got to calculate it first, which does take a while. So this is the 486SX, which means it's closer to a 386 in terms of interior design. It's not a true 486, so we're not going to get true 486 performance. Okay, so it looks like it's given us a half gigabyte boot partition. Let's have a look. Either that or something's going horribly wrong in the translation. So yeah, so it's given us a less than 500 gig primary partition, which it reckons is 100% of the use of the drive. So although MS-DOS setup saw the entire 8 gigs, which we saw earlier on, it looks like it's being BIOS limited to 488. Okay, let's try this one. taking a long time to access that hard drive. It's going about floppy disk speed at the moment, so something is definitely not right. So I don't think this is a solution. I don't think this is working anywhere near how it should be. Disk access light still on. It's just gone off. Okay, so it's recognizing it correctly, as in it's recognized it as a Dell. Recognizing that it's a 486 processor. Everything else seems to be normal in there. Memory. In fact, let's look at the summary first. So it's recognizing all 8 megabytes of RAM. It's recognized the VGA. That's all correct. In fact, so this has got the Visa BIOS extensions, this chip. That might be useful. No network, correct. OS is recognized, correct. Hasn't detected a mouse because I haven't got one plugged in. Has recognized the disk drives. So it's correctly selected the right number of sectors and heads, looked up in its internal table about what types of drives are available, and it selected the one with the biggest number of cylinders, which is 992. So it's given us the maximum capacity it could do, but it is BIOS limited in this case. So this is what the drive physically is. No, it's not. No, that's completely nonsense, isn't it? Okay, not sure where that's come from. So we can see why we've got a 481 megabyte, 487 megabyte drive. It's detected that correct, so the BIOS settings are still correct for those. COM ports, it has got 2 COM ports. That wasn't unusual at this time, because most mice around this time were connected via a serial port. If you had a mouse on your computer, you'd use up your only serial port. So a lot of computers started to have 2 serial ports around this time. That changed when PS2 became more common. Windows is not detected, correct. Device drivers, that should just be the normal DOS stuff, yes. So, in a sense, that's all correct. But drive isn't being correctly identified in terms of its maximum capacity. The drive access speed seems way off. So from a normal hard drive, you'd expect that command to come up within, you know, a second. Especially on a 486 system. I've got my Amstrad PC1512 would probably be quicker than that. It would definitely be quicker than that. At least this time we're able to read the FAT. So that's progress over the compact flash card. So it's looking at the directory structure. There's only 2 directories, the root directory and the DOS directory. And it's having trouble scanning those 2 folders. So there's definitely something not quite right here. And it's probably because that drive is just too large. And there's a lot of toing and froing, I'm guessing, between the drive and the controller. Okay, are we going to do a surface scan? Well, if you've got 10 years free, we could try. Okie dokie, so this is just not happening, is it? So, putting this drive in is not a solution either. What I'm thinking we should try next is putting a low capacity disk-on module on there, or a low capacity industrial compact flash in a compact flash adapter. Most of the compact flash cards I've got are consumer grade ones, which are designed for cameras and therefore are by definition removable media. Computers prefer to have compact flash cards that are able to signify that they are fixed disks, and industrial ones tend to be able to do that. Do I want to do a surface scan? No, because life is too short. So it's not reporting any problems with the drive, but there obviously is, because that is way, 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 way too slow. Okay, I'm going to stop the video there. We're going to think about what we're going to do next, and I'm probably going to get on eBay and order some bits and pieces for this. Right, it's about a week later, and I've ordered a few things online to help us resolve the issue with this Dell. Basically, I did a couple of different things. I ordered some compact flash cards, which are industrial. And the reason for that is that these are more likely to report themselves as fixed disks rather than removable media. I bought 3 different random ones. I got 2 half gigs and 1 256 megabytes. The hard drive maximum I think on this is probably about 500 megs. So I've tried all of these and they are all recognized in the BIOS. So I'm going to try this one. We've got reported as just a couple of megabytes bigger, so I'm going to use that one. I did order some other things. I ordered one of these disk-on modules, and I've never played with one of these before. They're basically a flash drive with a 44-pin IDE interface on them, and they're designed to plug straight into the motherboard of an embedded computer. They use the 44 pins rather than the standard IDE 40. So I did order some converters. I've already got one, but I ordered the slightly different type. And I also ordered the gender changer that I need, but that hasn't come in. So we're not going to be able to try the disk-on module. We're just going to go with the compact flash option for now and see if that works. So let's put this into the back of the computer, boot it up, see if DOS 6.22 will install and recognize it as a hard drive. So first disk, stick that in, turn it on. So I've got the DOS 6.22 there. I've got the Windows 3.1 Dell OEM that we prepared earlier. Apologies for the slight window reflection on the screen. So what I ended up doing, by the way, is putting the known working floppy disk into the computer. That drive caddy that was in there was nothing to do with this computer. It's obviously been pinched from somewhere else. I don't even know if it was a Dell one, but just getting it back in was a bit of a nightmare. But it has got in. It's got a working 3.5-inch floppy. One day I'll try and find the original caddy, or maybe try and get somebody 3D print one. But for now, it's just kind of wedged in there. But DOS 6.22 has recognized it as a drive by looks like it's now offering to install. So it's just fdisk the drive. Okay, looks like it's working. It's formatting fairly quickly, so that's nice. So the performance of this compact flash card can't be too bad. What I did do, which I didn't show you, is that I used Thomas Newman's ID info DOS command to see if it could tell me what the parameters were of each of the individual compact flash cards, how it's reported to the BIOS, and in all three cases, all three cards, including the ones in there, it did recognize them as hard drives. So I've got those parameters now in case I need to put them in manually in the BIOS. But it looks like it's all working. So I don't know how many times we've seen this now, but hopefully this will work. Certainly looking promising. 1%. Obviously we're limited by the speed of the floppy drive and the decompression of the computer, how it's unpacking those compressed files onto the compact flash. I suspect it's the CPU and the floppy drive that are a limiting factor, not the compact flash card at this point. I've already plugged in a mouse in anticipation of getting Windows on here. What I don't know is what drivers are included in the OEM version of the Dell Windows 3.1. Hopefully enough to get this video working, at least half decently. As you can see, I haven't had a chance to clean this yet. It's still very dirty, dusty, needs a good clean. Everything including the monitor and the keyboard, very dusty. But once we've got it installed with an operating system, we can spend a bit of time luxuriating over the clean. It's just exciting to get it working. If we can get it working, this will be the first 486 desktop in my collection that actually works. I've got a Viglen 486 as well, but I'm having some trouble getting that going. Got a very nice compact 486 laptop, which is nice. But in terms of desktops, this is the only 486 I've got at the moment. So it's talking about memory management here. So there is 8 megs in this desktop. I do have some more memory to put in. I can if I want to, but I think 8 is probably about right for the period. It's mostly a DOS computer with Windows 3.1. This is in the days before Windows 95. Memory requirements were much lower. 8 megs in a DOS machine was quite significant. Disk 3 going in. It's a shame we couldn't get the Dell OEM version 5 version of DOS working. But 622 would have been a legitimate upgrade back in the day. Some people might even have moved on to PC DOS 7 or Digital Research DOS. I think they released a version after Microsoft stopped making or stopped releasing DOS. Well, at least a standalone DOS. Obviously, Windows 95 boots into DOS initially. And of course, these days we have FreeDOS. Where would we be without that? Okay, we're getting close to being finished. It's interesting to see that Microsoft is already including Windows apps in its DOS installation. It was obviously expecting most people to have a version of Windows 3 and above on their systems as well as DOS. Nearly there. Oh no, really? At 99%? It said it was trying to copy over command.com. At least it did before. It doesn't say it now. Okay, well let's fail that. See if we can manually... Yeah, we can sys from the floppy disk, assuming that it lets us boot at all. Okay, let's reboot. I mean, it says it's missing command.com, which is going to get us nowhere. I'll put this one back in and we can manually install those last few files if it doesn't boot. Oh, come on. It's not going to boot from the hard drive. In fact, it's having trouble accessing the hard drive. Let's see what the BIOS is making of this compact flash card. It should be F2 to get into the BIOS, but that didn't seem to work. Let's give it what it wants. A floppy disk. So it's still booting off the floppy, even though it wouldn't boot off the hard drive. Hard drive light is currently out. You can't see that on the cameras, but at the end of the install, the hard disk light was on permanently. Okay, so it's still recognizing it. If we F-disk, just to make sure F-disk can still see it. There it is. Although it's been reported as 245 megabytes in size, which is incorrect. It's twice as big as that. So if I show you IDE info that I was talking about, that detects it correctly at 488 megabytes. It says it is a hard drive. Let's F-disk again. Oops. Total disk space is 245 megabytes, which is incorrect. So the span between those two things would stop it from booting. Can it only see 256? Can we read the drive C? We can. All the files seem to be there. So so it kind of works. It let me change directory, but now that I try to load something, the hard disk light is permanently on and it's hung. So, still not quite happy. It looked like we were getting there. It really looked like we'd managed to persuade the BIOS to see the compact flash card, but apparently not. No, I don't want to start that. Let's take out the floppy. Let's force a keyboard error so we can get into the BIOS. It's not working. Okay. Okay. So it's recognized it's a type 4890, 80, and 32. Which is about right, isn't it? It's about 500 gigs. 500 megs, I should say. And I can't remember if that was 980, 1632. Let's see if that's what IDE info thinks it is. Oops. So it's pretty close. So 16 heads. I know it only recognised 32 sectors per track, didn't it? So it looks like this BIOS can't recognise anything this large. So let's try a smaller compact flash. Let's try the 250 megabyte Cisco one, which I think IDE info told me was Western Digital. Let's try again. So let's do IDE info initially to find out what is on the ISA bus. So as far as the IDE controller is concerned, it's 980 cylinders, 16 heads, 32 sectors, which sounds really good. That sounds like what the previous drive was being detected as. So what does F-disk think is going on? So it's recognised it as a 245 megabyte drive. It's got a partition on there, but it's not active. So the install will deal with that. Let's just power cycle. Well, not power cycle. Let's do a warm reboot, just to make sure that the BIOS is definitely recognizing that card correctly. I can't seem to get into the BIOS. Not sure why that is. I'm pretty confident it's F2 to get into the BIOS, but it's not letting me in. Let's find out. Install number 472. So, we're getting this far. That's good. So the install's missed a step. It's not run fdisk and rebooted. So it's obviously happy with that partition that's already on there. It wasn't marked as active. I'm not sure if it's done that. But if the drive doesn't boot, we'll know why. So this took about 8 to 10 minutes last time. I'm not going to let you watch it again. So again, we've got to 99%. It's taking a long time to finish that 99th%. The hard disk lag is constantly on. Same error as last time. That's very disappointing. Oh well, let's see what happens. Let's see if it does boot into DOS. We can live in hope. Interestingly now I can't even do a Control-Alt-Delete. It seems to have properly hung. So let's power cycle it with the power button. Still no hard disk activity light. Just trying to boot off the floppy. Obviously couldn't see the hard drive because there was no activity light. Went straight for the floppy and again has hung. No Control-Alt-Delete. So this card, although it looked more promising in that it was more similar to what the BIOS was expecting, it seems to have failed at the same point, and it seems to have failed in a more spectacular way in that it's now hanging the computer completely on boot. Oh dear. Okay, let's just boot off the floppy. Let's just make sure that partition was marked as active. Let's just make sure there's nothing else going on that would cause a failure at this point. When I edit this video down, I don't know how long it's going to be, but it feels long. It feels very long. Okay, so it's still recognising that there is a hard drive in there. What does fdisk say? Fdisk says there's recognised the correct capacity. It's marked it as active. It just can't boot from it. It's kept the original partition. It hasn't repartitioned it. Is it worth doing that? Is that the one final thing to try with this card if we can't access it now? So if we go to the C drive, same as before, we can do a directory. We can move to DOS directory. We can see that directory, but if we try and run something, the hard disk light stays on, and whatever it is we're trying to load fails to load. So yes, this is a 20 MHz 486SX, so it's not very fast, but Microsoft Diagnostics should have loaded by now. Yeah, so we're getting a fail on the drive. Shame, 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 so close. Is there anything else we can do? So this is all correct. 245 is exactly what's recognised in fdisk. Okay, let's just remove that partition from the drive. Oh. So it says the volume label doesn't match. So is it B with lots of spaces? I'm going to delete the primary DOS partition. Partition 1 is the one I want to delete. Oop, the spacebar's got stuck down as well now. Oh, it's going from bad to worse. Label does not match. Okay, let me remove this partition on a more modern machine and see if we get anywhere. Okay, so I've formatted, I've removed the partition on that compact flash card using a partition editor on my PC. I've looked at the first few sectors, they are all zeroed. There is no evidence that there was a partition on there at all. I've just managed to go into the BIOS. And it's been 980, 1632, that's correct, isn't it? So that is what we're expecting it to be. So the BIOS has detected it correctly in that sense. Let's try and install DOS again. Part 974. Okay, so it's failed in the same place. So is there something else wrong with this computer? Does it have a problem with the IDE controller, the IDE cable? Is it just that it's a compact flash that's a problem? Who knows? So what I'm going to do next is I've taken apart this perfectly good laptop to get the hard drive out. It's a 252 megabyte hard drive, and we're going to try that and see if a real hard drive will get any further than these compact flash. But it's going to take me a few minutes just to disassemble, so bear with me. So that caddy took a bit of getting apart, and I didn't want to ruin it because it comes from a really nice computer, so I've dug out a different caddy. It was from a compact. They tend to be relatively easy to take apart. So hopefully this will be a little bit better. The drive is a bit bigger. It's 514 megabytes. So we may be bumping up against the limit of what this hard BIOS can see, but at least it's a real hard drive. It is a portable one though, so we're going to have to use that adapter that we saw earlier. The adapter is keyed. So I'm just going to put that on there. Plug the normal IDE interface into here, which is also keyed. At least it's keyed on the adapter, it's not keyed on the drive. But let's try it that way around. And of course we need some power. So now we have a real hard drive, albeit slightly different capacity to the one we were expecting. Let's just isolate that electrically. Let's see if the BIOS will recognize it. Let's see if it boots up. Here we go. So worryingly I can't hear the drive spinning up. So it's possible I've got that cable on the wrong way around. Or it's possible it's a drive I haven't used for a little while, so it's possible it is faulty. I can't hear or feel that drive spinning up. Let's do the cable the other way around. Okay, so you can hear the drive spinning up. Let's try and get into the BIOS. See if it's recognized. So the hard disk activity light came on, the drive did seek, so it feels like it has been detected correctly. However, it didn't recognize an operating system, and I know for a fact this drive has got an operating system on it. I'm sure F2 is how you get into this BIOS. Just don't know why it's not working. Come on. Okay, so the only way to get into the BIOS on this computer is to make it think the keyboard's broken. So is that a symptom of something else? Is that something else that's wrong with this computer? It's got BIOS revision A07, so it hasn't got an original BIOS. It's been updated relatively late in the production life cycle. I'm not sure what the latest BIOS is for this, but it has been updated. So that was still the same numbers that were on the original, no, sorry, the second compact flash card we used, which is maybe why it can't detect the operating system. So if we put it back on to auto and save, Control-Alt-Delete, and there we go. So it has now booted off that hard drive we've taken out of a laptop. Let's see what's on here. So this was taken out of a compact, so it's got compact DOS on it as well. What does it say? It says MS-DOS. So we're getting much further than we did with a compact flash card. So it's very likely that the IDE controller on this board is working, and it's very likely that the IDE cable is working, and the thing that's not working is the compact flash or compact flash to IDE adapter. There's not a lot I can do that in the short term. I'm going to have to think about that. I think probably trying an SD solution is probably the next best thing. The reason for that is that the SD cards we can get in small capacity that we need, and also we can get an adapter which has got an active translation. In other words, there's a chip on the adapter that converts IDE to the SD signal, because they're obviously very different, whereas compact flash in theory is a subset of the IDE command set. So it should have worked with a compact flash, particularly an industrial one, which is for embedded systems, but obviously it didn't. It is now working with this hard drive, so that's nice. So we know the computer works, we just need to find a working drive storage solution for this. And I think SD card is probably the way to go next, now that we've exhausted our other options. Anyway, let's have a quick look. Computer. So it's exactly what we're expecting. No surprises there. Drive. Oh, no. Drives. So even though the BIOS wasn't supporting this, it has booted with the correct capacity. And the video is a paradise, so it shouldn't be too difficult to find drivers for. Is there anything else that's worth looking at here? Does this have a memory test? It's got a memory browser, but it hasn't got a memory test. Okay. What else is on here? Oops. So as you can see, I took this out of a compact. So the computer works, we know that. We just don't know why it doesn't work with a compact flash card. It's not very happy with the display adapter because it's come out of a laptop, obviously with a different driver, but that's fine. Yeah, that's really affected the graphics card, isn't it? So let's do a power cycle. So if it boots back in first time, we know that everything is working as it probably should. We just need to get a working storage solution. It looks like we can go up to 0.5 gig. You know, we've been through so many permutations, I can't even remember if we tried this with a 2 gig actual IDE drive, did we? Did we? Let's have another go. Alright, so I've connected up an actual 2 gigabyte, 3.5 inch IDE drive, which is what I didn't want to put in because I wanted to use it on a different computer. It's spinning up, I can hear it. So it's working in that sense. I can't remember if we tried it in this computer. Okay, so it's... Let's put this back on auto. So 2 gigs is probably too big for this BIOS potentially. Is that why we didn't try it? I really can't remember. It's been such a long time since we started this process. So let's reboot it, see if it gets recognized. And if not, we're going to order a SD to IDE adapter. Error auto sensing hard drive. So yeah, this drive is too big for this BIOS anyway. Or the drive's faulty, one or the other, but I suspect it's not faulty. As far as I know, it's a working drive. It's just too big, isn't it? Okay, so I'll get on to the usual places, order some SD cards and some SD card to IDE interfaces, and see if we can get this 486 finally working. Right, so I've got a IDE to SD card adapter on order. I've already got a SD card of the right size. It's actually a mini SD, which was a very short-lived substandard of SD, but this is a 512 megabytes, so perfect size for this computer. So we'll put that in the SD card adapter when it arrives. In the meantime, we're going to try 2 more things out of desperation. One is we're going to try a different compact flash to IDE adapter, just in case. I don't see how this can be an issue because it's literally a pass-through, but we'll give it a go. The other thing we can try, and this shouldn't work, is for these early machines where the capacity of the drive exceeded the BIOS, you could use these disk overlays to kind of circumvent the drive geometry being confused, and this would basically let you use bigger drives in BIOSes or computers that didn't support them. So this shouldn't make a difference because we're using a compact flash card that is smaller than is actually needed. It's not excessive for this particular BIOS, but while we're waiting for the SD card, we might as well try everything. So we're going to try seeing if we can make a difference with this. So first of all, the alternate compact flash adapter. So as you can see, this is brand new. The other one I was using was brand new as well, so it should just work. This is a slightly kind of more high-tech model. Oh, look, it's got a 44 pin and a 40 pin on it, so we can use this with laptops as well as desktops. It's got a jumper for master or slave, so that should all be fine. Jumper 1 needs to be set on external because we're not using the 44 pin, which includes power. We're using this one, so we need to supply power on there. So we shouldn't need to change any jumpers. It's got some LED lights which might be useful for diagnostics. Slightly more upmarket version than one we're using. Obviously this isn't a back plane one, this one needs to fit where the drive would have been originally, but let's just give it a go. Got nothing to lose. So I'm just installing the cable. So it isn't keyed, the cable, but the adapter does at least show where pin 1 is. So that's nice. We're going to put in one of the compact flash cards we've used before. And we need to supply some power. So this takes a floppy size power connector, which a lot of these do. So let's give it a go. Let's see what happens when we switch it on. So I've got some LEDs on the compact flash adapter. It says that there's a problem with the configuration. So because there's no CMOS battery, it has forgotten everything. So let's hopefully that should help. No boot sector on hard disk. Now that is interesting because at least it recognises there's a hard disk there. So let's pop a floppy in. So actually, let's just go into the BIOS, see what it's detected it as. So 16 heads, 63 sectors, and 1,000 cylinders. So quick bit of maths. 16, that's too big, isn't it? Okay, it's detected something. Let's see if we can boot to floppy and get FDisk to find it as well. So there's two very bright LEDs on the adapter. One's confirming that there's power being received. Second one is an activity light which is on permanently, which is a bit of a worry. Let's see if FDisk can recognise it. It appears to have decided there is a hard disk in here, so if we FDisk, so no partitions defined. Okay, that's good because we did clear everything off this drive, if you remember. So that's what about IDE info. So it's recognising it, and it says the same geometry was in the BIOS. So that is right. So it has worked out that it's the correct capacity. Should we go for it? Should we just try and run setup for the 972th time? Formatting speed, I think, is slightly slower than with the other card, but it's pretty decent. It's not hideous. So don't forget the adapter's passive, so it's not the adapter that's made a difference, it's got to be the card itself. Suspiciously long wait on 99%. So it claims it's successfully installed apart from command.com. So before we could boot into DOS, and we could look at a directory, but we couldn't do anything beyond that. Similar sort of symptoms, we've got a drive activity light that's on permanently, but nothing actually happening in the real world. So that obviously hasn't helped, so it isn't the adapter. Let's go back. Let's boot off the floppy and try the on-track disk manager. We're going to put in the on-track disk manager floppy. There it is. I'm guessing it's DM. Okay, so as I said, this shouldn't make a difference. This should actually have no bearing at all, but it's probably worth a try, isn't it? As we exhausted everything else. Okay, let's go with easy. So it's detected the previous partitions, but we want to continue, so we're going to Alt C to continue this manager with this condition. Back to install, yes. So it wants a DOS boot disk, which we have. So the compact flash disk activity light at the moment is flashing appropriately. Okay, so it thinks it's finished. It says compress control alt delete. So I don't know if that's normal behavior, but it isn't booting off the newly created partition that was created by OnTrack. But the disk activity light is solidly on, so I'm guessing it has failed. Let's boot off the floppy, see what FDisk thinks. In fact, let's not look at FDisk, let's just go straight into the install. Let's see, here we are again, 99%. Yep, still on 99%. Don't think this is going to work. I've had one more thought. If this doesn't work. No. Okay, so using the on-track disk manager did not make a difference. So the final possibility before this SD to ID adapter appears is what happens if we make a partition that's smaller than the capacity of the actual drive. Is that going to make a difference? Because it always fails just at the very end. Now, the end of the installation isn't right into the end of the partition, at least it shouldn't be. But what if something weird is happening? So, this is one of the partitions we created earlier on. And as it happens, that one is only using half the disk. Let's anyway, let's delete it. Okay, here we go. 99%. Last couple of files coming up. Are we going to have success by forcing a smaller partition? Or does this computer just not like compact flash cards? Drive light staying on. I think the same's happened again. Oh well, I think we've tried pretty much every permutation. I think we can safely say that this Dell 486 does not like compact flash cards for whatever reason. It can see them in the bars, it gets the geometry correct. FDisk can see it, but it's just something about whatever it's trying to do here at the end. It just really doesn't like it. Whether it's trying to write to the MBR, shouldn't be anything like that, because we've already affected the master bit record by creating partitions, so it's just weird that it happens right at the very end when it's trying to do something specific, not just copying files across to the file system. So as before, we've got a file system, and we can navigate it. Spacebar does not want to come up. So I think the spring is either busted or that particular one switch is just very, very dirty. As you can see, it's now kind of working. Let's go back into DOS. So that kind of all works. But as soon as we try and read something from an actual file, it dies. So I've stopped narrating because I've just lost the will to live. So, the one last thing to do. If I misremembered this. Okay, well that seemed to work. Let's just do that. Yeah, it's something about writing the system that it doesn't like. This is going to time out, or am I going to have to reboot? So, have we been barking up the tree the entire time? Does this BIOS have some antivirus feature which is preventing an operating system being installed? Caching the video BIOS shouldn't cause a problem. Boot, password, non-cached region, that's... So the hard disk can be disabled if you want to put in a drive controller card in one of the ISA slots, but I don't have an ISA slot drive controller. None of that's going to affect so there's nothing here that makes me think that the machine is blocking an install. Doesn't make sense. I'm just going to turn these two off, these caches and shadowing, just on the off chance. I mean, it shouldn't make a difference, should it? No, it's not even going to boot. Here we go, here we go. Here we do go. No, save mode of failure. So, just doesn't like him. Just doesn't like him. Okay, it's about a week later. The SD to IDE card has arrived. They all seem to be pretty much exactly the same. There's no jumpers on it, so you can't select primary or secondary or anything like that. It's got 2 different power inputs, which is nice. Space for the SD card. It's got some LEDs. And we've got the half gig mini SD in the full-size SD adapter. So we're going to put that in there. And then we're going to plug this in. And we're going to try installing DOS on it, see if it's any more successful than using the compact flash card. So let's turn it on. It's been a few days, so it's probably lost its BIOS settings. Disk 1 of our MS-DOS. Keyboard failed. Ah, yes, keyboard's failed because I unplugged it because I fixed the spacebar. On these, or at least on this generation of the Dell Bigfoot keyboard, either end of the spacebar there's a cushion just to soften the bottom out of the keyboard. And what had happened is those had become very sticky over time. So every time I pressed the spacebar, it was holding the spacebar down. So I took the spacebar off, removed those pads, put the spacebar back on. It is a bit, it sounds different to the other keys now. So that's a normal key, and that's the spacebar. So it does sound slightly different, but it's resolved the problem. Is it going to auto-detect the SD card correctly? We won't know till it's booted up. DOS cannot set up install, does not have a hard disk. Okay, so that's disappointing. It may be just that it hasn't been detected in the BIOS, so let's try and get into the BIOS. So yeah, so it's not detected anything. Set that to auto. Let's give it a date, just so it doesn't complain. Okay, it's now seen the hard drive, which is good. So the card appears to be working in the sense that the IDE to SDE part has detected the SD card in there and it's detected the capacity correctly. So that's reassuring. So let's go back to setup. Okay, here we go. Is it going to get past 99%? Of course it will. Completely different technology. What could possibly go wrong? Suspiciously slow. The activity light is on permanently. It's the same symptoms as we're using the compact flash card. Yes, and it's the same error. So, so that hasn't helped. So, you know, that's disappointing. It's actually sort of not a surprise. The reason I say that is that I haven't spent the last week just waiting for this to turn up. I've done some other things. There is a more up-to-date BIOS for this computer, which this is A07 or A08, I think, from memory. There is an A12 on the Dell website, and it doesn't mention anything in between, but one of the things that is updated in A12 is the IDE compatibility about auto detection. So I'm wondering whether updating the BIOS will help. The other thing I've also done is downloaded a Dell OEM version 6 or a version of MS-DOS. I had the originals, but my second disk was corrupted, so I've downloaded some other ones and done a backup. So this machine also shipped with DOS 5, so I've actually got some DOS 5 disks. A retail pack that I've got, actually not a retail pack, it's an OEM pack but from a different manufacturer, which we could potentially try on here, just in case it's very DOS specific. But I'm going to try updating the BIOS first and see what happens. So, disk 1 is back in. Let's restart the computer. I'm going to take the disk out. It's not going to boot from the compact flash card, from the SD card, because it hasn't. Any other time we've had the same symptoms. So the reassuring thing is though, that we've had the same error with compact flash and with an active interface like the SD card converter. So it's unlikely to be the storage mechanism itself, or the storage medium itself. So we can go back to using some of those compact flash cards that we had earlier, and use this SD card adapter in something else. So that's good to know. Yeah, it's definitely not booting off the card, isn't it? Can't access the hard drive. So I'm going to boot into MS-DOS. I've got the latest version of the BIOS on the on-track disk manager, disk overlay software that we tried earlier on. So I'm going to try that. So this is an A07. So we're going to be updating to A12. So potentially 5 bug fixes later. So that may help us out. We won't know until we try. And what's the worst that could happen? Well, we could brick the system, and that would be a big, big shame. But let's really try not to do that. So we're going to exit to DOS. We can take out the boot disk. We're going to put in this utils disk. And it's in this directory here, CD 486P underscore A12. So let's type release A12. I can't spell. Let's try that again. Type release A12. Ugh. Okay, so it's more than one screen long, which is a shame. Don't think we can paginate, yeah, and we haven't got access. Is more an inbuilt command, or is it? Yeah, so let me just get that readme up on a different computer, just so we know what we're doing. So what it says is changes version 12, fix problem in the new ID AutoSense with AutoSense in drive 1. Added Western Digital 320 megabyte ID as drive type 35, blah, 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 blah. So it tells you what's updated. It doesn't tell you how to use the application, but I'm guessing we just type flash, or we type flash with the BIOS name after it. Yep, there we go. So we want to type flash 486p underscore A12 dot ROM. So make sure we got all that correct. That appears to be all we need. There's no way of backing up the existing BIOS, which is disappointing and slightly scary. So yes, we do want to update the BIOS. Okay, that was quick. Compared to modern BIOSes, which obviously must be quite a lot larger than this. Okay, so we're going to reboot. I'm reluctant to take the drive out. Until it does reboot, and it's not rebooting. That's scary. Have we now bricked this machine? Let's take the floppy out because it has got the disk manager overlay software in there. We don't want to install that. We've already tried that. Press any key. It says it's worked. Do we power cycle it? Do we wait? No, we're going to power cycle it. What could go wrong? So it's now got the A12 and it went through a memory test step, so that's all good. So we're going to hopefully go into the BIOS. It's now trying to read off the hard drive instead of going to the BIOS. That's not helpful. Well, we know the hard drive isn't working. Let's just try and force a keyboard error, see if we can get back into the BIOS. No. So it doesn't like us going back into the BIOS, so that's a little bit disappointing. Oh, there we go. We should be able to force a BIOS entry now. It's still trying to access the hard drive though. Hard drive access activity light's coming on. BIOS installed. So it's correctly detected the drive, the SD card. That's all good. It says it's the A12, it says it's all working, so that's good. It's recognised all the memory. What's on the second page? Anything that's changed? Boot sequence, now that all looks exactly the same. So, let's try installing MS-DOS 622 again from scratch, now that we've updated the BIOS. The fact that it's still trying to access the hard drive makes me think that something's still not quite right. Accessing the hard drive and failing, I mean. So let's boot off a floppy. So I've also ordered some a AAA container to replace the CMOS battery, so we can hopefully get the CMOS battery working properly. Just recognise that, but that's, we've been here before. Are we going to get a different outcome? So if this doesn't work, the only other possibility I can think of is that for some reason 622, the version of DOS we're using, just doesn't like this computer. The other possibility is that somewhere in the IDE system there's a fault. 99%. It's all happening very slowly. So, right. So, I mean, let's just see if it boots. So it hasn't booted any other time we've tried this. So it's unlikely it's going to boot now. But just on the off chance, let's just give it a go. Hard disk activity lights come on and stayed on, which is the same symptom we've been getting all the previous times. So as I was saying, the ID system is potentially broken in this system. We do have the option of putting in an ISA add-in card to put some more IDE channels in. That's going to be a little bit fiddly, but it's doable. because it would be nice to get the system up and running. It's it's in fairly good condition. The other thing I've done as well is I've ordered a new caddy. That floppy disk caddy is non-original. I haven't been able to get an original one, but one came up that was the right colour, a little like it might fit. One came up on eBay, so I bought it. So we'll try that as well while we're waiting. But as you can see, it's not recognising the hard drive, so it's a no-go. So here's the Dell OEM MS-DOS 6 drives. I haven't confirmed these are working, but I only made them earlier today, so they should be fine. As I said, you saw I had got a genuine copy of this, but disk 2 was corrupt, so we couldn't use it. So we're downgrading a version, so or a couple of subversions, so we should probably wipe the drive just to be on the safe side, just in case it's something to do with the partitioning that's weird. So we've got the correct partition, it's the correct size and everything, so let's delete it. MS-DOS 6. Yes, I definitely want to do that. So we'll let it boot off the floppy again, we'll exit setup, run fdisk, then run setup, run through these 3 disks. Now that's the same number of disks as the retail MS-DOS 622. It'll be interesting to see if there's any extra utilities that are Dell specific on any of the floppies. So fdisk mbr setup. I don't know if the mbr binary file between 6.0 and 6.22 are different, but just to be on the safe side, let's just go from scratch. So, looks like we're going to have another installing DOS montage. So so far exactly the same behaviour. Reads the disks fine, writes to the drive, you get disk activity for a brief moment while the drive's writing. So will we get that permanent drive activity light at the end? Yes, we do, but it's at 98% instead of 99%. Yeah, who knows? So at this point, it's looking more like there's a problem with the IDE controller on this motherboard. The motherboard looks fine, but it is 30 odd years old. Pretty much 30 years old. 1991 is the copyright date on it. So, yeah, looks like we might have to do something completely different. I'm either going to have to source a 16-bit ISA IDE card, which I've got a feeling might be tricky, or we could try an XT IDE. It'll only be 8-bit, but it will at least almost certainly work. I don't know if I'm going to need to disable the onboard IDE, and if that's even possible. The only other thing we haven't done is checked the cable. Is there in fact a problem with the cable? Should we try another cable? Oh, that's a possibility too, isn't it? No, I've changed the cable. This is a different cable because I needed a longer cable to go back to the IDE to compact flash bracket that was in the back of the computer. So no, this is a new cable. So I've had the same issue with multiple cables. It's not cables, it's not power, it's either motherboard or IDE controller. The sound card. Sound card's in the system. DOS doesn't natively support sound. It shouldn't make a difference if I take that out, but should we do that anyway? Because that's the only other thing we haven't changed. We could try installing with only half the memory in, see if that makes a difference. So in every process where you're trying to deduce the source of a problem, changing two things at once is not recommended because you don't know which of those two things made a difference. So this time I'm going to try these things. I'm going to take out the sound card, I'm going to halve the memory, I'm going to use a DOS 5 installer and see if any of those make any difference whatsoever. Right. So what is it about writing? It says it's reading command.com from the floppy. Okay, it's not, because the floppy access light isn't working. The hard disk light is permanently on. And obviously we've got this error, and it happens every time when it's trying to read, when it claims it's trying to read command.com. It must be trying to write command.com. When we tried this with the very first time, it would at least allow us boot into DOS, but we couldn't run anything, if you remember. So setup must do something really weird at this point to trigger this error. Let's see if we can boot off the hard drive. It seems unlikely, given our previous experiences. I have thought of one more possibility. It's a bit of a random one, but it's possible. And that is that when I put the longer cable in, because it had to be longer, it's a 2-header cable. Well, 3 if you include the motherboard end. Whereas the original cable was just the 2 separate, the motherboard end and the drive end. So there was no cable select shenanigans going on. This kind of feels a bit like that, because it feels like it's some kind of low level thing that's going on. The file system works fine. You know, we can write to the drive. But at least we know it's not the memory, it's not the sound card. There is definitely something weird going on with this IDE bus. It doesn't matter whether it's the SD card or the compact flash, it doesn't matter if it's DOS 5, 6 or 622, it just doesn't work. Cable is another possibility, or faulty motherboard, as I said originally. But I'm so reluctant to say it's a faulty motherboard. I really don't want it to be that. That's all fine, recognising the drive. Let's try one last reboot with the system the way it is, and then we'll change the IDE cable for a short one. I can't remember if the original's just here, or whether I've packed that away. But we'll change it for a single header cable. I'm not sure I've got a single header 40 wire cable. definitely got an 80, a short 80, but the original 40 that came out of here should be around somewhere. But yeah, that's not working, is it? So I've just put in a very short 80 cable ribbon. It's not the one that's originally out of here, so I'll try and find that in a moment. Is it going to make any kind of difference whatsoever? Doesn't appear to have so far. So it still can't boot from the drive we have just formatted from DOS 5. I'm going to stick with DOS 5 for now, just because it's quicker to install. If it just keeps on failing, then it's likely to do that with DOS 6 as well. So let's boot off this floppy. So the install software should recognise that there's no partition, should create a partition. I'm just going to leave all those as the defaults, just for speed, because the chance of it happening, actually working, is low. While it's doing that, I'm going to see if I can find that 40 pin cable, 40 wire cable I should say. So getting past 98 is our target, and we're going to do that. Now it's only 95%. Maybe because I didn't select the UK for the localization. Either way, it's the same behavior, isn't it? It has failed at the last moment. So having a short cable with just a single connector on hasn't directly helped. It is an 80 wire cable, so let's just take that out, which doesn't want to come out. Okay, that was very stiff coming out. My now concern is that in fact there's something wrong with the IDE socket. Are any of the pins bent or missing? No, it was just stiff. All right, let's put in the original. So this is the original cable. It's a 40 wire single connector cable. Shouldn't make any difference. But you know, things aren't always completely straightforward. Just making sure I've got the polarity the right way around, because that isn't keyed, that cable. Put floppy one back in. So the obvious thing to try is to format this card in another machine, install some software on it, and just see if we can get it to at least boot. So with the original cable in, it's now taking a very long time to recognize the drive. Is that a symptom of something? Feels like I've got that wrong, that cable, but so the hard disk activity light is on permanently. and we're not getting past the post, which, unlike a horse race, is the opposite end of the race. What have I done? What have I done? It's got power, the SD card is in. Okay, so the cable is not keyed, but it has got the missing pin. So it can only go in the one way, so it's definitely the correct way. Let's see if we can force going into the BIOS. But this is starting to become more complicated, not less complicated, which isn't correct. Ah! I know what I've done. So to get the IDE cable in, I had to unplug the floppy. I've not plugged the floppy back in, so it can't find a boot device. So that does make sense, actually. So can't see the wood for the trees. So hopefully this time it will boot straight through to the floppy. Making the right noises. So as I was saying, the next obvious thing to try is to actually install an operating system on this card from a different machine. I've got a Windows 98 laptop that I can install an operating system from onto a compact flash card in a compact flash to PCMCIA adapter, so we could potentially do that. There's probably actual images, disk images, that I can write directly to the compact flash card. I don't need it to be bootable because I can boot off the floppy and sys it from the command line. I just need to have a working FAT16 or FAT12 partition. So who knows? Who knows? Let's just try this one last thing. I've got so much other work to do, but this is a little itch I need to scratch. So at this point, I'm assuming this is going to fail. My next plan of attack is to take one of the compact flash cards we used earlier and format that from a Windows 98 computer. Copy across some DOS commands that we need. Then sys that from the MS-DOS 6.22 or 6.0 first installation disk, so that we've got the correct version of the operating system boot files on the partition, and then just see if it can boot for it. Because for whatever reason this setup app is not working. And I don't think it's the setup app specifically, because we've tried 3 different versions of DOS, but it is one particular part of the setup app, the very final part. I'm not sure what it's trying to do, but whatever it is, this IDE controller doesn't like it. This is all normal behavior. It's writing to this disk access light is going. No writing problems. So we're going to get to about 95% and die, or are we going to get to 96% and give a massive cheer? As I said, this is original cable now, so we're back to the stock machine apart from the actual drive. If that original hard drive had been working, we wouldn't have to do all this. That's such a shame. Such a shame. Oh well. Right. Plan Z.